video session. This is a walkthrough of the new features in version 5. We're already into the detail of these. There are 10 different areas. We've covered the ones in red in previous videos, and in this session we're going to be looking at issue impact recording analysis and planner app additions. Okay, so we're collecting lots of data from Planner. Let's go and have a look at our Planner file here. This is using new Planner 5.0. We've tied together those versions now because in practice we've often been incrementing new features into Planner to go with the new features in the main application. So let's start by looking at issues. So we're going to look at our issue impacts. If I go and pick an issue here, we can see we've always had this general tab, comments, responses. They're all the same as they were before, but there's this new tab for impact. This allows us to record the impact we think this particular issue will have on the project. We're measuring time, cost and quality. Time and cost are simple numerics, so I can say, well, this is going to have 3 days of impact, and the cost impact might be quite a lot, say 20,000. Of course, it's going to pick up the units from the settings you've got in your planner file. Quality impact, there may be none, there might be some, and of course you don't have to fill in all 3 areas for every issue, and you can simply choose an impact significance rating by the slider and then give it some text about what you think the actual impact is. This is stored alongside each issue, and then the data is rolled up at a project level. So for a while we've been rolling up risk data. If I come and look at the risk area here, you can see, for example, each risk has been rolled up to give project level risk counts at inherent and residual and total and closed and not closed. And these are useful indicators of how risky a particular project is. Exactly the same approach has been taken to the issue data, and that's been rolled up behind the scenes as well, the issue impact data. We can see that actually in this new form here. So I can see I've got a status box here for issues. When I click on that, it shows me some information here for the issue status, which is available from a pick list. It's set by the person who is updating the issue register. And we simply determine what we think it is based on the evidence at hand. So in this case I'm going to say it's amber. I could give it a commentary if I wanted to, and in fact everything on this form here is going to be loaded into the main application when I check the planner file back in. So these issue statuses and commentaries are newly available to feed into your reports as properties. They'll be created as properties from plan. And in fact these are feeding, the statuses are feeding the new project statement report that we saw in the last session. And we're also creating these stats which give us some information about the total picture of issue impact across the project. And I can see those here when I'm writing my commentary because I want to write something about how the issues are looking on this project and how I'm managing them, and these stats are useful indicators about that. We can also collect information in the same way for risks and plan. So for risks we've got those same sort of stats we were just looking at a minute ago. Again, I can determine my risk status like that and I'll give it a commentary. And in the plan area, again a similar sort of idea. We have a metric shown here which is plan progress to date though, and I want to tell you a little bit about that as well. So let's come back and have a look at the plan area, and you'll see that same form is accessible from each of these tabs here, showing you the status on the current one, and obviously once you open that form you can move between each of the 3 areas. So for quite a while we've been having people asking us, how do you indicate that, how do you see that a project is progressing on track? And that's a very difficult thing to actually work out. Many people use I know that sounds a bit odd, but that is the case if you think about it in data terms. It's a very subjective sort of measure, is the project on track, because it depends on what aspect you're looking at it from. So we've got all these tasks recorded here, and we're recording percentage completes against many of them, and we can see that that's been rolled up for us to a project level bar which is calculated by the system, task level 0, and it's showing me the start and end of the project and its percentage complete as a progress along that bar. So it's 98.5% complete, this project, and I can see where today's date is, and therefore I can subjectively look at that and say, well, actually we're more complete than we need to be at today's date. And that's what that looks like on that chart. And as it happens with this plan, that's a pretty good summary of it, because the tasks seem to be following one after each other. They're evenly distributed throughout the project, and therefore you've got a pretty good guide to that. If, however, you had all the tasks bulked up at one end of the project or another, or they were heavily weighted one way or another, you might find that, for example, you had a lot of work out in the beginning of the project, then a big gap and a couple of days of activity at the end. And that would heavily skew where you were looking. So if you're in the middle of the project somewhere and today's date was here, but actually you'd done 95% of the work, you'd be showing yourself as all the way over here, which would give an incorrect impression. In particular, the other way round, where you've got a few days work at the beginning, lots of work at the end, you might show as being well behind where you should be, but in practice all the tasks that needed to be done by today had actually been done. And that's what our new measure of plan progress to date is all about. What it does is it looks at today's date and says, right, what tasks should be complete by now, or what proportion of tasks where the date line passes through it should have been completed by now. And it's telling me that our plan progress to date is 100%. Now that means that we don't have any tasks this side of today's date which are not either complete or at the as far through completion as they should be. And we can see that, but if we take this one back and move it back to partially complete like that, we can see that this is now going to show as 97.6% plan progress to date complete. So it's looking at the weighting of the tasks before today and how complete we are with those. So we think this is quite an interesting new measure. It allows you to have a clear stat, and actually, of course, taken in combination with the overall project percentage complete, that gives you a good understanding of where you are on the project. Those two figures taken in conjunction. So, so some really useful new data being collected there. We're also collecting and rolling up some other statistics out of our planner files. So we can collect costing information against the tasks. And this, in this particular project, we've set people on as resources. He says picking a task doesn't have any. And again, rather helpfully, so let's go and pick a different one here. So here we've got 2 people set on this task, different allocations of time, with a cost per hour rating, and therefore they've got a certain amount of allocated hours which they could, which they're expected to spend to deliver that. Now we can then record actual hours, and that's obviously multiplied by the cost to give an actual resource cost, and we therefore calculating these stats down here, which we have done for quite some time in Planner, of the task hours, how complete it is, the resource cost, any fixed cost there might be as well, and then we work out therefore the total cost for this task as it's budgeted, the progress cost, which is the cost we should have spent based on its percentage complete. So if this was 50% complete, the progress cost would be 700, half of 1400. And then we look at the actual cost, what we have spent currently, and that's 900. Those are available on each task, on each summary, rolled up to the project level. As well as rolling up to the project level and seeing them in Planner, we also now export them as plan properties, so you can see them in your main system. It's rolling up all that data. It's a little bit, this progress cost is a little bit like a sort of simple earned value. When you look at it at the project level, it's saying how much have I spent and incurred cost against my project, against where I should be. Also though, the data associated with these individual allocations of work is also going to be brought through to the main system. So previously the data was held on a task, it was just used to calculate these financial costs which we rolled up to the project level. But now these assignments, as we're going to call them, Liz has got a separate assignment to Malk on this particular task, are all also exported to the main system, and they're available for you to go and look at. You can therefore get them out and filter them by person or by time scale or by completeness or whatever you want to as a data set, and use that data for invoicing or cost accounting of your project. And that's what really this is about, cost accounting of the project. So lots of other data being accumulated there and sent through to the main system. Other notable changes to Planner itself are the introduction of the calendar and milestones tabs here. Now these work, we're going to look at them here in Planner itself, and then in the next video session we'll also look at them in the main application, and they are slightly different in the two cases. So here in Planner, on your calendar view, you will see any data associated with tasks and also with responses to risks and issues. So here in February 2017 I can see I've got some tasks, and I can click on that particular task to see something about it, who's working on it, commentary, etc, etc, details of what's happening. And in fact, of course, I can update that information from here. So people that are not necessarily particularly au fait with the Gantt chart type display can use this instead. And I can see the particular tasks. If I had multiple tasks running in parallel, they'd be showing down the page here. I can turn it from monthly to weekly views, etc. And we can also see here responses to risks and issues. So I've got a risk response and an issue response here on this particular day, and I can see that information. In fact, it's the one we were looking at earlier. So bringing all that together into one view for you. Now actually with this you can also go away and use this data in an interesting way. So you can get this data out of here and turn it into a calendar file. So whatever your current view, your current set of information is in plans, risks and issues, as they're showing on the calendar here, that can be extracted as and turned into what's called an ICS file, which is a standard calendar file. You can then load that into Outlook, and you'll have all the details about those tasks, the start and end date descriptions, etc., who's working on them, etc., available in your Outlook calendar. So it's reminding you in Outlook all the time about these things that are happening. Really useful to be able to do that, and of course it's personalized because it runs from the view, like all of our other data exports, runs from the view, so it's what you've got set up in your current views across those areas. So you might not want everything, you might just want your things, for example. Milestone timeline, similar sort of idea. This is just looking at milestones though. We're not interested in normal tasks, only things that are set as milestones will appear here. If they're behind today's date, it'll show whether they're complete or overdue, and ones that are ahead of today will be shown as on track usually. We've then automatically putting in milestones for the start and finish of the project, so we can see how that's progressing through. Again, these items can be clicked on to go and look at the detail and update that content. Again, this follows filters, so if you're filtering to just look at particular sets of milestones within the project, that's what you're going to get out. And you can get this same view in the main application, and you can also get this now into your printing out of Planner, so it's a bit like your Planner reporting. So lots of new things in Planner here. Yes, they definitely help the users, the standalone users of Planner, and if you're a corporate customer and you've got your suppliers using Planner to feed you information, they'll be taking advantage of this sorts of additional items. But the main reason for putting this in here is to better improve the sort of data we're collecting and sending to the main application, so we can feed it into better reporting and analysis. And that's what we're going to look at in the next and final session, breaking down the detail of what's in the new version 5, where we go and looking at assignment reporting and how all this data feeds through, and using Planner online as well in the browser. Okay, thank you.